what is the very basis of the Sikh religion? Most people think that the Sikh religion is talking about God. But very rarely do we get the opportunity to ask the question, well, what is God? When we think about the word God, what is the image that comes in your mind? What does God look like to you? Most of the time, whether we admit it or not, the image of God that comes in our minds is of some sort of father figure, a masculine being, maybe with a white beard sitting in the clouds. Is this the God that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is talking about? We talk about be a Sikh, dedicate your life to God, praise God, do ardas to God. You can come and ask God for any problems and God will help you. But now we're finding that the younger generation are very soon coming to the realization that they just don't know what this God is. I've now seen children as young as 13-year-old say that they are atheist. Sikh children who say that they don't believe in God. And what is shocking about that is that by the age of 13, they've already decided that everything that we've been told about God is a lie. It doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the real world that our friends are living in. And what's so scary for a parent like myself of young children is you actually don't have much time. We don't have much time to educate them about what Gurmat is talking about before they get educated from the outside world. And the outside world convinces them that the religion that you've been following is all made up. That everything is just blind faith. Everything is just belief. And in fact, we also use those words. How many people would agree that the Sikh religion believes in one God? Even if you look up the definition of the word Sikhism in a dictionary, it says Sikhism is a monotheistic religion that believes in one God. But I argue that Guru Nanak Dev Ji did not believe in God. Guru Nanak Dev Ji knew God. And there's a very big difference. And when we still just believe in God, but we don't practice what the Guru is saying to know God, then God always remains a concept. God always remains an idea. God always remains far away. And is this what the Guru wants for us? Did Guru Nanak Dev Ji come to the world to say, you all have your own ideas of what you believe God is, I have my own idea of what I believe God is? Are we just talking about ideas? Or do we like to think that Guru Nanak Dev Ji really knew what this God was? And if Guru Nanak Dev Ji knew what this God was, then surely he wanted us to know what this God was as well. So how do we take a concept like God and make it real? At what point do we know God? At what point do we feel God? At what point can we see God? The first is to understand, well, let us just examine what this God is. Is it the same God that the culture of the world is talking about, that old man with the white beard sitting in the clouds? Is that who we're talking about? When we look at Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it starts with a very clear definition of what God is. It starts with Ik Oankar. But when we look at the translations of Ik Oankar, it says there is one God. But the translation there is one God doesn't even begin to describe what Guru Nanak Padsha meant by Ik. Let's not even go into Oankar. Let's just look at Ik. What is Ik? And I want to make it very clear why these concepts need to be studied, need to be understood. Because we have very fortunately got a world where today we can say proudly there are some 30 million Sikhs in the world. It's a big deal. It's a great achievement. 30 million Sikhs in the world. But do we define a Sikh by somebody who wears a kada? Do we define a Sikh by somebody who covers their hair, who grows their hair? The Sikh Raith Maryada tries to define a Sikh as someone who believes in the 10 Gurus and doesn't believe in any other religion. I would imagine that a Sikh is not somebody who just wears the kada and looks like a Sikh. A Sikh is somebody who thinks with the Guru's way of thinking. The whole world has a way of thinking, a mat, a soji, a wisdom. And that is the mat that they themselves come up with, or society's wisdom. But surely a Sikh is someone who, when they bow down to the Guru, they say, I don't want my way of thinking. I want to give up my way of thinking. I want the blessing of your way of thinking. So a Sikh is not defined by the external, a Sikh is defined by the internal. And if we're defining a Sikh by the ones who have the wisdom of the Guru, now can we say we have 30 million Sikhs in the world? Forget 30 million Sikhs in the world. Let us ask ourselves, am I myself a Sikh? Am I someone who looks the part, does all the Sikh things? I might even be an Amritari, I might even wake up early, I might even have all the right words to say, but have I allowed the Guru to transform my thinking? Has the Guru changed my eyes so that the eyes that I look at the world with are the Guru's eyes? Because if the Guru has transformed our thinking, then the Guru will transform our experience of life. So regardless of what you believe, we should ask, am I having an experience of life that is fundamentally different to the people who aren't exposed to the Guru's wisdom? Or is my life pretty much the same as everyone else? Do I go through the same emotional turmoil as everyone else? Let me ask a simpler question. Gurbani tells us to control our anger. Gurbani tells us to be detached from happiness and sadness. So when we wake up in the morning, can we honestly say, because of the Guru, I won't be feeling any sadness today. Because of the Guru, anger won't be attacking me today. Or, in reality, will we have to admit that I have no control over this anger? I have no control over my emotions. I am just in the same emotional roller coaster as everyone else in the world. I'm very fortunate that with the ability to do prachar in English and having put that prachar online, a lot of Sangat from around the world message me, contact me, share their ideas with me, share their problems with me. And I'd like to share one message that I recently received. I received a message from a young lady who said to me, I have a question about Sikhi and I have a question about God. She says, a very good friend of mine, an Amritari Gursikh, recently committed suicide. She said, why did that happen? Why did God let that happen? If we are truly students of the Guru, then the Guru should have transformed our experience of life by now. If we've allowed the Guru to transform our thinking. So this message brought up two questions for me. One, why are we, if we are claiming to be Amritaris, still going through all of this emotional turmoil? Why hasn't being committed to the Guru, reading the Bani of the Guru every day, doing Kirtan of the Guru, surrounding ourselves with the Sangat of the Guru, why are we still going through such emotional turmoil, such sadness, such difficulties, so much conflict in life, that some Amritaris, unfortunately, are in such a deep emotional state that they even give up their life? Why should that happen? Because we've defined an Amritari as a person who does all the Amritari things. They wake up, they do the Amritari prayers, they wear the Amritari clothes, they look and they speak like an Amritari, they sound like an Amritari. But the Amrit that the Guru blessed you with, that the Amrit that they drank, the Shabad that was poured into those beautiful, sweet tasting nectar, the Amrit that had the strength of the sword but the sweetness of honey, that which we drank only went into our body, didn't go into our minds, didn't go into our hearts. The Amrit is taken in. It should be taken in so that every cell in our body is replaced with Amrit. And every thought in our mind is replaced with Amrit. And if that isn't what is happening, even slowly, then are you really an Amritari? Are you really an Amritari? Guru defines what an Amritari is. Chima chima varse Amrit tara, man pive sun shabad bichara. The mind has to drink the Amrit. So, if we are to start on this journey, we cannot assume that what the Guru is saying, we understand. We have to really go deep into that understanding. And that understanding starts and ends with Ik. I like to use the example that when I was young, I used to like going to the mathematics lessons because my teacher would give me a mathematics textbook and all the problems would be in there, all the questions would be in there. But when I looked at the back pages, the answer to all those questions were also there. But the teacher would never be happy if they asked me, how do you do this problem, how do you solve this problem? And I just look at the back and look at the answer. The teacher would always say, no, you have to show you're working out. You have to show that you've understood the answer. Guru Nanak Padshah does something very similar, but Guru Nanak Padshah starts with the answer, and the answer to every question in Gurmat always comes down to ik. The truth of the matter is, the whole of Gurmat wisdom has been summarized most beautifully and so intelligently into one single digit. The whole of Gurmat wisdom is there. The answer is ik. Then Guru Granth Sahib Ji carries on to explain to our minds, how do you get to this understanding? What does this mean? The Guru is helping us work this complex solution out. So ik is a concept that we shouldn't skip over. Even in a lot of Baniya, in a lot of Hukamnama that we hear in the Gurdwara, it begins with Ik Onkar Satgur Prasad, or even Ik Onkar Satnam Kartapurak, all the way to Gur Prasad. What that means is what Guruji is going to talk about is a katha of ik. But we usually skip past that. Ik Onkar Satgur Prasad, Ragasa, Ragtanasri, and we start reading the Shabad like that's just the title or the introduction. No, that is what the Guru is doing katha on. That is what the Guru is doing an explanation on ik, oneness. So if you will allow me, I'd like to share some understanding that the Guru has shared with me on what ik means. Ik means that everything in the whole entire creation is one thing. You know, if we look at this darbar, we may look around and we may see so many different faces. We may say there are 100 women and 100 men. But the Gurmat wisdom would say that there aren't 200 people sitting here. It would say that there is only ik here. And the ik has many different forms. One ik, oneness, that looks like many different things. That is for me how I've started to understand how I can start to think about ik on a day-to-day basis. Because I don't want Gurmat to be conceptual. At least in my life, I would like to feel the ik, to know the ik, to be able to see the ik. And Guru helps us with that. The Guru actively encourages us to look at everything as not multiple different things, but in reality just one thing. So that means that the person sitting next to you is ik, is part of that ik. Let's call it God for now. The person sitting next to you is God. The person sitting in front of you is in God. The person sitting behind you is God. And the person sitting where you are sitting is also God. Everything is that oneness. And with this understanding, we start to realize that God is not Upparwala. How many times do you hear that phrase, Upparwala? We do ardas and we start looking to the sky. Why? Is God sitting in the clouds? Or is God everything all around us? It changes your thinking. Some of you might be uncomfortable with that thinking, saying, this is not the God that I've always been praying to. I'm praying to that God over there. My question to you is, are you willing to have your thinking changed? When you bow down to the Guru, you say, I'm willing to have my thinking changed. Not that I already know everything. I'm just here to confirm that what I know is accurate. Because sometimes, most of the time, whatever is being said, whatever is being taught, we don't actually listen to the Guru, we listen to the mind's interpretation of the Guru. And the mind says, yes, I know that already, I know that one already. That one sounds like it's probably not right. Let's reject that. Let's just agree with all the wisdom that we already know. Sometimes you might even think, why do all the Shabads sound the same? Why are they always saying the same thing? It's always talking about Paramatma, Mera Sahib, Naam. The same concepts keep coming up all the time. The same concepts keep coming up because Guruji knows that our mind keeps rejecting this one fundamental concept. And Guruji is so loving, so nurturing, that Guruji doesn't give up on us. Guru keeps explaining, that no, you haven't quite understood it yet. Let me give you a different Shabad. Let me give you a new example. So the oneness is the thing that is everywhere. It is inside you, it is outside you. We even hear it in the Lama. Antar bahar, har prab eko. Inside me and outside me is that Waheguru, that oneness, that har, that prab, that eko. It is inside me and it is outside me. In fact, it is everything. There is nothing outside of this oneness. So that makes this God in the sky disappear. Are you happy for that God in the sky to disappear? Because it challenges, well, who do I do ardas to? Who can I ask for when I want to say, God, my business is not going well, or I need a new job, or I need to pass my exams? I can ask that God. But how do I ask the God that's sitting right here inside me? But Guruji even challenges you doing the ardas, asking for all these things. Bin bolya sab kich jaanda, kis aage kiche ardas. Who are you doing ardas to? The one that already knows what you're going to say before you say it? Before you've said it, it already knows. Why? Because it's already here. Before the thought has actually happened, it knows because it is the generator of that thought. That oneness is the one that put that thought inside you in the first place. That I want this or I want that. Who are you doing ardas to? Certainly not that God up there in the clouds. It really challenges our thinking. Can I have a God that is so close? If God is so close, then it knows all the bad thoughts that I'm thinking. I'm not comfortable with God being that close. I'm comfortable with God being a little bit far away, that I can pretend like I'm a good person. I can pretend like I'm an Amritari. I can pretend like I'm a Gursik. Because we can look like a Gursik and everyone else can even give us a pat on the back. You know, some people, when they are living their old lifestyle, maybe cutting their hair, maybe drinking and smoking and all these sorts of things, when they stop doing all those things and maybe they start growing their hair, they make the mistake of saying, I used to be a manmukh, now I'm a gurmukh. Just by stopping and doing a few things, I've become a gurmukh. But if you study Gurbani and you study the words that the Guru has used, the praise of a Gurmukh, the praise of a Gursik, you might say, I can never be that person. I'm not even worthy of calling myself a Sikh, let alone a Gursik, because the Guru clarifies what the definition of a Sikh is. I'm not even a Sikh yet. So the external doesn't make me a Gurmukh, even though everybody around me might be patting me on the back and saying, Shabash, you've become a Gurmukh. But the definition of a Gurmukh has to come from the Guru as well. So are we really allowing the Sikh mat to enter into our mind. And the Sikh mat, the Guru's mat, starts with ik. And if we don't do any vichar on ik, then everything else that you read in Guru Granth Sahib Ji will be talking about that God in the sky, that Upparwala, not the one that is everywhere. So how does Gurbani explain to us that this God isn't far away? Sometimes you might have heard this analogy that Sikhi, or the journey of a Sikh, is like a drop of water trying to return back to the ocean. Have you ever heard that analogy? Like the drop of water is far away from the ocean, and the drop of water has got lost and it's trying to find its way back. And in the same way, we have also got lost and we're also trying to find our way back to merge with the oneness. This analogy is actually incorrect, because the drop of water, if that represents us, then Gurbani says that the drop of water has never left the ocean. You are in the ocean. You have never been separate from the ocean. You are in the ocean. You just don't know you're in the ocean. Let's see if Gurbani talks like this. Guru Nanak Dev Ji has a shabad on Ang number 878. And Guruji says, Sagar meh boond, boond meh sagar, kavan bujhe bid jane. Within the ocean are the drops. The ocean has all the drops, and all the drops have the ocean inside them. Within you is the entire ocean of the oneness, and you are in the ocean of the oneness. So how can we say that the drop of water is separate from the ocean? How can it be? Guruji is not using that analogy. Guruji is saying that the ocean has the drop and the drop has the ocean inside it. Guru Nanak Dev Ji explains this. In fact, all the Gurus explain this, all the Bhagats explain this. There's a beautiful shabad on Ang number 23 also by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And Guruji says, Rang Rata Mera Sahib Rav Rahya Bharpur. My Sahib is everywhere and in everything, totally permeating and pervading in all. But if we don't understand that, Guruji has been so kind, Guruji further explains this. Ape machi machli, ape pani jal, ape jal manakana, ape andar lal. Guruji uses an analogy because with analogies, Guruji creates an image in our mind, and it's easy to understand images in our mind. Even when we're children, we understand through colors and drawings and images. So Guruji uses that psychology. And Guruji says, I want you to paint a picture in your mind. Imagine that there is a fisherman standing on a boat, and the fisherman has thrown a big net and is trying to catch the fish. Guruji says the Gurmat way of looking at that is that Waheguru, that oneness, is the fisherman, Waheguru is the fish, Waheguru is the water, Waheguru is the net, Waheguru is the weights of the net weighing it down, and Waheguru is the bait that is used to catch the fish. Everything is Waheguru. Have we ever gone out into nature? Sometimes you go out into nature and you look at a mountain and you look at lakes, but the thought that comes in our mind is, wow, Waheguru, these lakes and these trees and this nature that you've made is beautiful. Because for us, Waheguru is far away, and we say, Waheguru, thank you for making this. When do we ever say, wow, Waheguru, you are beautiful, and I can see you in the mountain, I can see you in the river, I can see you in the birds, I can see you in the sky, I can see you in the clouds, I can see you in the water, I can see you in everyone, I can see you in me. Gurbani is using this kind of language. But because we've listened to these shabads and we say, yeah, that's talking about that Waheguru up in the clouds, our mind stops us from taking in the Guru's wisdom. We never listen to the actual words of the Guru, and this is not a blame. This is trying to understand how our minds work. I'm not blaming anyone. This is how my mind and your mind works. Our mind stops us from listening to the Guru. Our minds are interpreting the Guru and saying, I think that's what the Guru is saying. So you're not listening to the Guru's voice, you're listening to your inner voice. And your inner voice is misinterpreting. And at least if we know that, I don't even know how you begin to change that. But at least if you know that, you can be conscious of it. And say, can I actually hear what the Guru is saying? And can I change what my inner voice is saying? Am I willing to change my thinking, or am I just willing to be a Sikh